Valerie Kelso.
And I'm Suzette Teague.
And welcome to the Don't Believe the Hype Show.
So today we have an incredible gentleman with us, Michael Guinn. And he's an aspiring actor, poet, and MC. And he is here today. We're going to talk about his story of struggle with strength and survival. He's a childhood trauma survivor, and he tells his story of truth and transparency via dramatic spoken word. How interesting. He does storytelling, which displays his courageous past to healing as an inspiration to other black men. Michael is nationally renowned as a spoken word artist, storyteller. He's a multi-published poet and a high-energy MC. And we are so grateful he's here. He's the director of the Mike Guinn Entertainment and founder and CEO of Uplift Your Life, which is a nonprofit that addresses mental health and emotional wellness globally via social awareness and performance arts. As an award-winning poet, actor, and mental health advocate and activist, he applies his talent to create high-impact community events and open mics and spoken word showcases. And I'm just excited to hear about that. This past February, he won the Irma P. Hall Black Theater Award for a featured actor in the stage play and is currently appearing in 2 Amazon Prime series, Peter, the series. And he also makes an appearance on season 2 of Washed. He's done some film work on a film called God's Tired, which is directed by Michael Guinn in Dallas, and a short film called The Lamb, which is directed by Ali Kareem in Los Angeles. He's been a featured actor in several short films and documentaries and is no stranger to the stage. He has a huge following and brings everything he has to the table as a featured guest or artist. Michael would love to contribute this amazing series as a featured speaker. His accomplishments: 2-time National Poetry Slam finalist, Toronto International Slam champion, and 4 times AIPF Slam champion, Great Plains Pile-Up Slam champion. Some of his notable works: Keeping the Dream Alive, I Wish I Had Waited, Richie Man, Roses Are Red, Born to Win by Kane Bell, Father Comes Home from the War, which won an Irma P. Hall Black Theater Award in 2020, Black Men Interrupted at the Soul Repertory Theater, and his film credits are Gordon Lee short film, Michael Guinn short film, Calvin J. Walker, The Lamb, writer-director. We are so excited to have this gentleman grace our presence. We're so excited to have him here today, and I know you're going to love to hear from him.
So, Mr. Michael, when did you first start writing?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show, ladies. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I first started writing December 21st, 1997. I was working in the field as a CPS investigator. Came in from a real long day, just sit down at my desk and just put my head down, and I started crying. And when I lifted my head, I had a pen in my hand. And the first thing I wrote was, "What good is my master's degree if I can't be the master me?" And then after that, everything came pouring out, all the poetry, all the trauma-informed spoken word, everything just became healing. And so that's what happened.
Wow, that is amazing. I love that. So tell us a little bit about spoken word. How has that been healing to you? How has that helped people? I know it inspires people.
Right. Well, spoken word for me it's just been an outlet for all the things that you bury deep down inside, and I just use it to for me to make sure that I am an example of African American man who's not afraid to be vulnerable and transparent, and hopefully that inspires other people, other men, especially and young men, to know that they don't have to carry this for so many years and have that be something they filter their emotions through. And sometimes when you do that, it leads to bad communication, which leads to breakups, which leads to divorces, which leads to domestic violence. So I just want to be an example of how you can work through it creatively and therapeutically through spoken word.
Is there a place we could come see you do that, like right now? I'm just excited about it. I'm already ready to go see you.
I'll go on the
spoken word. Oh, you're going on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, every second Tuesday of the month I have an event at Create Arlington in Arlington, Texas. Every last Friday, I have an event at the Black and Bitter Coffee and Books in Duncanville. It's every last Friday. It's an outdoor and one of the biggest outdoor open mics in the country. Other than that, I'm just I'm everywhere. I'll be in New Jersey, Baltimore, and Philadelphia this coming Friday, touring and hosting and performing. But I'm doing a lot of stuff, and I'm very proud about that. But I'm doing that while it's kind of part-time. I'm also a full-time social worker in Dallas. I work for City Square track program, so I work with youth with age out of foster care who also have a mental illness. So I'm a permanent supportive housing coach with them. And so for me, healing and being in a place that I'm grounded and know what's going on has helped me be able to connect to the youth that I work with, 18 to 24, and to get them to see that, you can come out of where you are and be better.
Wow.
So you said that you're a trauma survivor, and because the audience need to know, well, what kind of trauma did you go through? Because it had to go from somewhere to where you are today.
Yes.
Well, the trauma, and I won't get into details, but
yeah, I just want you to give it.
Obviously, back in the day, whoopings would be considered a little bit different today, so. So I would say, a little bit of child abuse, some neglect, and then of course, sexual assault as a real, young 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and then watching siblings go through that as well. So that would be it. But being able to work through that, not blame myself, not be ashamed about it, being brave enough to talk about it so that other men know that, these things can be possibly, and women seeing that men are willing, there are men that are willing to talk about that trauma and work through it, and so, because they need to know what's going on. If you get into a relationship with someone, you don't know, everything about that person, or if that person's not willing to be, open about everything, then there's some things that can happen down the line. That's some confusion, some communication. What's wrong? Why don't you talk to me? So, I want to be an example through my trauma that you can talk about these things, and people can know what's going on with you going into a relationship, so that you can, so you can work through those things or decide if it's something that you want to take on.
That's right.
So,
Like when you talked about a minute ago, when your first inspiration was, I have a master's degree, but how can I master my own life? I didn't say it exactly like you did, but was that something you published? Like, was that something when you started writing that was like, oh my gosh, this is so good?
Well, it took me 5 years to actually get to the stage, and sometimes when you write and you're like, you Anne Frank the work, it's years before anybody knows that you have these brilliant pieces of your soul out there, and then so it took a while for me to get on an open mic, which I did, in 2001 at a Barnes and Nobles in Arlington, and so that was my first time. After that, so after that, I started getting into going to events where there were organizations that had structure and memberships, and I started, Poetry Society of Texas, Zawadi Writers, Fort Worth Poetry Slams, and other organizations, and started going to open mics and finding out about publishing opportunities then. But I didn't actually publish my own work until like 2009, 2010. But I was a part of many anthologies, and of course immersed myself into the world of Poetry Slam, and that was a way of me being in the community where I could find out more about publishing and presenting and showcasing and sharing my work.
Wow.
And one thing I like about what he does, because I write poetry, but I'm sort of, when I go to his place, I'm scared to say
right now, I'm gonna get you. Keep coming, I'm gonna get you.
Well, that's why I'm trying to build up my confidence from what I've gone through myself. But I do write a lot of poetry back from when I was in England about some of the things that I've gone through, some of my own personal traumas. So that's why I thought, well, you know what, maybe I can start trying to express myself a little bit more. My daughter writes poetry as well. And
so does mine.
So going to his show and seeing all these people, and I think, oh my God, I'm not going to ever be as good as these people. But I know it's inside of me.
Yes.
And all of us has got something inside of us that's waiting to come out.
Yes.
And I mean, so it's not a big place, but it's always full.
Wow.
And there's always different
I'm
people.
excited.
You need to come, because everyone needs to go in, just because poetry is like a song. poetry to me is like telling a story.
Yes.
And just
Exactly.
I love
putting it-
poetry.
And putting it in words.
Yeah.
So I do take my hat off him when I see him up there and doing up, especially when he says to everyone, give me one word, and I want to give you something stupid because you know me and I think that's good I'll say. Because they're going to look at me and I don't like no one looking at me, I'll be honest with you. That's why I stay back there.
For now.
I do, but I will keep coming because I do enjoy poetry. So my thing is, has poetry opened like a lot of doors for you, or?
Yeah, it has, and I appreciate you asking me that. As you mentioned earlier in the bio, you know, I went from the poetry slam, I went from just writing to open mics to poetry slam, to hosting, to you know, doing workshops, then MC at conferences, and then after that, it was an easy transition to go into an audition and share my work as in an attempt to become an actor. And so those doors are open, the floodgates are open. I don't understand why they waited till I was an old man to start calling me now, but here I am, and I'm doing all this work, and I'm enjoying it. You know, it's tough to juggle both as a full-time social worker. That's my passion, is to make sure nobody else goes through that, doesn't have the feeling that I had of not having support, not having resources. And so I link with many organizations to do that. So that's another way poetry is open doors. I'm doing a lot of creative writing for emotional wellness, for social awareness. I've done everything from HIV awareness to human trafficking. I mean, people just see the value in having someone come and be able to guide an event or a workshop where people can just get free.
And your youth that you, and your youth that you help. Yeah, I mean, it said in here in your bio that you actually help youth with that youth slam that you did. So it seems like it's really healing in that arena as well.
Well, you know, poetry slam is different. It's a competition,
Okay.
and it's not a perfect science. And I wasn't perfect in the youth slam arena. You know, it's delicate. But when you talk about youth creative writing and being able to get them to go back to where they were when they wrote, it's different from poetry slams where it's about creating work that's going to compete against other poets from all over the country. So it's a different arena, and sometimes when you're a guide in those spaces, you tend to forget about the competition, forget about the people sometimes. So I'm glad that I'm away from that, so that I can focus on doing what I'm supposed to be doing and continue to do that work. And so I'm very proud about you know, the lessons I've learned from the mistakes I've made as a man, as a father, as a coach, and just as a person who's supposed to always try to be as much as possible, provide an opportunity for people to feel safe and wherever I am. So now that I'm back there and dealt with my own, you know, stuff, therapy, everything else, I'm full on, ready to go, ready to do the work I'm supposed to be doing, and that's what I'm doing from this point forward.
So what are some of your hopes and dreams for the future, whether it be your social work or yourself? Like where do you see some of all this coming together for you?
Well, my hopes and dreams are for the future. Right now, this is my future. This is what I hope for since, you know, August of 2017. I hope to be able to do what I'm supposed to do with this work, and that is create safe and supportive platforms for people to come and not feel ashamed or embarrassed or hesitant in sharing who they are and letting people see who they are. So if I can be a role model or an example of that on stage, that's 100% is what I want to do through, you know, open mics, you know, symposiums, you know, acting and creating, you know, just showcases to showcase everyone else's soul and spirit. So that's the future for me.
So
That's
what
awesome.
would you tell someone that's young who's getting ready to start thinking that they haven't got nothing in like poetry inside of them, but they like to write books? They think no one's not going to listen to their work, or it's not significant. When you first started, basically what I'm saying is, did you feel your work was ever going to be good enough for somebody else?
It was never about a comparison for me, and that's what I would tell somebody. It's not about good enough. It's about how you feel about what you wrote. If you go into this thing thinking, if you go into an open mic, or go into some other space thinking, all right, I'm not as good as somebody else, then you're telling yourself that I'm not good enough for me. So if you wrote it down, if it's how you feel, that's good enough. Now, your task is to get the confidence to go and share it, not compare it. Share it in those areas. Just share, and don't worry about what people are gonna think of you. Don't worry about mine wasn't as good as that last person. Your space is your space. Never bring somebody else's energy into your space. You are there for your own healing. You are there for your own story. You are there to get your validation that, and when I say validation, that you were brave enough to share your work. It doesn't matter how good it was, your metaphors messed up, your onomatopoeias or alliteration. Don't worry about that. Just write it down. I tell my youth, just write it. It doesn't have to be poetry. Write me a list. Write me a grocery list of emotions.
That's what I was going to ask.
That's
you.
awesome.
It doesn't have to be, and then you will see the poetry in it by the way you express it. So start there. And when people tell me I don't know what to write about, I say write that down. I don't know what to write about. and then I'll say, okay, what is it that you don't know what to write about? This. I said write that down. That word down. This. I don't know what to write about. This, whatever. And then they see they have that aha, that Forrest Gump when the verses came out moment.
Yeah.
They have that moment, it's like, yeah, I see now. And that's what's going to happen to anybody that once they do write, they come into an atmosphere. When they share, they're going to see this just that aha moment, that it's okay, that it wasn't so bad at all.
Because most people look at poetry and think it has to rhyme. And
Well, spoken word. There's a difference between poetry and spoken word to me. Poetry, you got Shakespeare, you got all these great, disciplined writers. Poetry is a disciplined style of writing. You have many forms of poetry. You have prose. You have haiku, tanka, senru. You have sonnets like Shakespeare wrote. So there's many forms of poetry. Spoken word to me is like, okay, for example, poetry. If you have a coloring book, poetry is when the sky is blue, the grass is green, everything is supposed to be where it's supposed to be. The house could be. But spoken word, you can paint the whole page black, tear it out, make an airplane out of it, and fly it across the room. That's spoken word. There's no boundaries. No boundaries. So you can have some end rhyme in there, you can have some near rhymes, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to adhere to any particular thing. Okay?
And that's what most people need to understand, because because when you say poetry, like for me, it would be like seasons of misdemeanor fruitfulness, because that's what we.
And for me too.
Grew up in.
That's why I spoken word.
So,
right. It's different.
But when I go to be spoken word,
it's a mixture
like
of both.
people have just got. It's like they're just pouring out the content. So
free verse, all that good stuff.
I love spoken word. So what inspires you? It's spoken word apparently, but what inspired you to even want to take that first step when you wanted to share publicly? Because you had all these good writings, and you were successful in what you were writing down, and you knew in your heart you had something to pour out into. But what inspired you to take that first step? Somebody needs to hear that.
Well, I took baby steps. Baby steps are when you write something, you share it with your coworker.
Okay.
When you think about this, oh my God, and then I did that to enough coworkers that I eventually shared it to a coworker that said, you know what? There's an open mic over here. And then I was like, oh really? Well, I'll go check it out. So I was an audience member like you for years. Just put my hat down, and then.
Not that bad.
Right, there you go. Well, I was. And so if I can come away from that, especially, a male and macho and poetry, what is this mess? And then when it hits you, you understand. You understand that it's not about poetry. It's not about spoken word. It's about you writing your life and being brave enough to share that so that there's healing. Because when you keep it inside, then that healing doesn't begin. And that's what it's about. So after I started writing all the trauma, all the woe is me pieces, then came the funny, then came the erotic, then came the spiritual. But you have to start somewhere. So baby steps. That's all I'm saying.
And that is so inspirational. You were inspirational.
Is there a poem that you want to
share with us?
Oh,
Even a quick spoken word. Share with us a quick spoken word.
Like how you go there and you tell us, give him a word.
What do you mean,
We're not going to do
We're not
that.
going to do that. Because you usually say to us, give me a word, and it comes up with this creative poem.
Well, is there something
So,
on your heart,
yeah,
a spoken word that you carry around? I'll tell you this, if you're carrying around something in your heart, it's just a spoken word that inspires you to keep going and to keep growing, what might that be?
I have one poem that I use because, back in those days when things were rough, and again, family is family, love my family, we're always going to love our family. It's the only family we know. I at that time, I left home, went to live with my grandmother, and because of, her getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, half the day is gone, at 4 o'clock, half the day is already, get up boy, half the day is gone. But all that work ethic, that instilled work ethic, instilled time, a sense of time. That like the Marines used to say, we do more Army said we do more before 4 o'clock than most people do all day. That was my grandmother. She was already up pulling weeds from the flower bed, mowing the lawn. She had 2 strokes. So I wrote a poem called Wings, and it's a poem I dedicate to her. And it's part poetry, part spoken word, but just me saying goodbye to her. So I'll share that poem.
Okay,
thank you.
I'd love to hear it.
All right. High up in a clear blue sky, I rise, soaring in symphonies, gliding upon an orchestra of freedom. Now, as I fly, I take a deep breath and taste the sun laughing in lemon drops while clouds smile soft, candy kisses upon my face. And this moment becomes the sweetest memory I've ever known. Wings don't fail me now. Heaven howls a rhapsody that beckons the air beneath these wings to be at my command forever. Strong, bold breezes cool the aches of my feathers, ruffling them with wind songs, killing them softly with wind songs, guiding me back home where I belong. Somehow, I have to find my way to tomorrow. You see, my destiny is waiting for me there, hiding in between drum beats, waiting in between whispers, caressing my soul with the sound of silence. And as I spread these wings out, cut like black thunder, slicing the sky, creating soliloquies against the wind, and set the night on fire. You see, nothing will stop my flight because I plan on flying forever. So wings, don't fail me now. I'm almost home. Love you, Grandma.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you so much. Wow. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, or they wanted to come see your show, remind us again where it's held, because that will help us to make sure that they may have missed that at the beginning.
Right.
And now they're real excited to see you.
Okay, well.
So share your show where you are, and then maybe if you want to share a email address, a website, a Facebook page, just anything that you want the audience to know if they wanted to come see you or connect with you.
Okay, well, they can see my agents, Jamise and Valerie, and they'll be able to swing them through and give the feet. No, actually, no, I'm kidding. Like I said, every second Tuesday of the month, we're at Create Arlington, located at 306 West Main Street, downtown Arlington, free event. Every last Friday, we're at Black and Bitter Coffee. That's in Duncanville at 100 West South Main Street, and it's also a free event. And then everything else is available on my website at MikeGuinn.biz. And go there, or just Google. You'll find me. Google Michael Guinn. I'm everywhere. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and all other forms of social media, even TikTok. I'm on there.
You're on TikTok.
TikTok, oh my goodness. So Michael, we have one more question for you that we want to ask. What does "don't believe the hype" mean to you?
Don't believe the hype would mean to me in regard to my life or anybody's life is that if you see all the stuff that someone posts on Facebook, don't believe the hype. Mm-hmm. Get to know the person, ask questions, find out what you're getting into, and then you can believe the hype when you see it.
That's great.
That's great.
That's so
Facebook
good.
and all the other media platforms don't show people the real person. You know what I'm saying? So
me, I'm all out there. So everything about me, I show my big toe when I got a manicure, whatever. I say everything. So me a little bit different, but just make sure that you do the research and don't believe the hype until you do.
We are so appreciative of you and having you on our show. We love your energy. We love what you've created and accomplished, and you've touched some lives today, and you've inspired some people. There's some poets out there right now writing something down because
come see me. Pull up on me.
You're gonna have to get a bigger spot than that.
I know, last night we had a
Right.
show there
I
and it
know.
was packed, man. We had to
It
go
was.
buy chairs, but people love coming to a space where it starts on time, it ends on time, there's free refreshments, the host and the people there are accommodating, they want to make sure you're safe, you're seated where you need to be, and that is what's missing nowadays in event promotions, and that's what Mike Guinn Entertainment strives to do, is to provide that type of atmosphere. So yeah,
I'm excited.
come on through.
Yes.
That's true.
So, guys, we thank you so much for tuning in today to hear from Michael. He has been such a blessing to us. I know he's a blessing to you. Thank you for having us come into your home today, and Valerie and I are so appreciative of you for tuning in every week. So we want you to
Don't
tune in
leave the
again.
Hype Show.
We want you to tune in again next week, and have a good day today.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
And don't believe the hype.
There you go right there.